think over 18 months, I think half the people got 2 kind of roles. And it just reinforced what I really think. You are not, I totally agree with the measure that's been adopted by Act for Change. You have to have quotas. You have to start forcing producers to start casting disabled people in films and in their roles. And because what it's seen as at the moment is you might have some good intentions, the nearer you get to production, it's just seen as a problem among many other problems. And very few people just say, oh, yeah, I'll deal with that, I'll do it. What they do is they just drop it off. And I just think you have to force the issue to really change the situation. Because there has been some change, but it's very fragile, and I would like to see quotas are quite simple. They could be really low, and they're measurable, and you can see whether it's done or not. I'd also like to see penalties. So if you didn't do that as a producer, then there's going to be a problem for you. It will affect your career. It will affect the money you get maybe for the next production, particularly in companies like BBC where it is public money. Anyway, I really am going to get that notice in a minute, so I'll stop there.
I've hidden it.
And join in the discussion.
Thank you very much. Right. Because we've only got 15 minutes left, Lisa, if you'd like to speak, don't be as long as any of them, and then we can get a few people from the floor as well. Thank you.
I've been to my fair share of these events over the years, as we all have, probably since, 23 years since I first started acting in Grange Hill, and pretty much yearly events like this happen on reflection, and it's hard to not get jaded by the same story all the time. It reminded me, I was a part of the company, the failed initiative by the BBC, because it crossed it, the aim of it was to cover people at different experience levels, so more experienced actors, less experienced actors, different backgrounds, and that was incredibly disappointing, because I think Ewan was the best placed person to be heading that up, and he had a good selection of different disabilities and different experiences, different ages, and women, male, and all of that, and that was very disappointing. All this reminds me of a story. I think TV and TV and theatre are different kettles of fish, really, in terms of representation of disability. But in telly, a couple of years ago, I knew this casting director for years, and he got me in for just a normal role in a BBC programme, playing a girl that just, with a normal story, just an able-bodied role. I went in, the director liked me, got the job, and about 2 weeks before I was due to film the episode, I got a call, I got the script through the door, and the whole story had changed to the thing that was the problem in the scene, instead of the girl being insecure, was a disability storyline. The whole thing had changed. So I obviously then got back in touch with them and said, that's not the part I auditioned for. I'm really not happy about this. Why? And the executive producer would not speak to me. I was doing all of this through her assistant. And she said to me, her assistant told her that they don't buy, her audiences would not buy the programme if they didn't mention my on screen. And so that's where we're at, really, in terms of that. And what's horrible about it is that it puts all the pressure on the individual, and it makes you look like a diva, it makes you look difficult, it makes you look... and also everyone's watching in terms of representation. Community that are all, because it's so few and far between that we get representation. You're on TV once and everyone's like, yeah, but it wasn't that and it wasn't this. It has to fulfill everything, and that's similar to the race issue as well as disability. But there's so much pressure for you to do well and do your job with little training, but also to to get in there, infiltrate from the inside, and try and make them do stuff that isn't to do with disability or that's just by the by, incidental. So I just, yeah, it's quite tiring, and even for the confident person, can be quite a lot of pressure on your shoulders, really. So that would be great if there would be a world where that could sort of ease up a bit. So I don't really have an idea of how, but
I'm going to ask everybody to just speak for a minute when I've taken 2 or 3 people from the floor. So I'm going to look for hands. There's there and here. I'm only taking about 3, so put your hand up if you want to speak. Right, thank you.
Hello. My name's Janine Booth. Is this working? Oh, it is. Yeah, I wanted to ask, as acting, as you've been stressing, is your job, what the impact has been of trade union organisation amongst actors, and what has the trade union, whether it's Equity or any other union, been able to achieve in terms of challenging discrimination, improving working conditions for you, either collectively or as an individual. And linked to that, at TUC Disabled Workers Conference earlier this year, Equity and I think the Musicians Union, I think the NUJ, all spoke very powerfully on a resolution about, basically it was stressing that things can be very difficult for disabled performers and journalists and others because of freelancing. Because so many of you in this job don't have, a secure permanent contract of employment with regular wages, but you're going from job to job with, and periods of unemployment and that kind of thing. So I was wondering if you could comment on how much more difficult insecure employment makes working conditions for disabled actors.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take all 3 and then I'm just going to let you quickly answer. You were next. If you could pass there. And then you were next in front. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know everybody's names. That lady there.
My name's Jessie Paris, and I'm doing my PhD in Theatre Studies at Warwick University, looking at the convention of casting able-bodied actors as characters who are disabled. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on the fact that, as we've seen from looking at the statistics of benefit cuts and things and attitudes, how disability is not seen as a positive thing in society, and yet when able-bodied or non-disabled actors play these roles, they're often awarded with Oscars and things like that. So I just wanted to get thoughts on that and
Thank
whether
you.
that's okay or not.
Thank you very much. If you jot down, if you want to, and then you can just answer any of them. You don't have to answer all of them. You were next, and then there's somebody at the back who was next, and then that's all we're going to have time for, because then they've got to quickly answer and then it's lunch.
Hi, Sophie Weaver. I've worked in disability access field for a number of years now, and but outside of my consultancy work, I have been an actor, writer myself, and this is probably more to Ewan. When you mention some of those sort of groundbreaking series films where the writers wrote specific roles in the 90s, I remember an event in the 90s held with the Writers Guild of Great Britain, and it was particularly focusing on those new films and TV series at the time. And there was something around the BCIDN and the quotas that you mentioned. And we were having similar discussions, as you say, 20 years ago, around, setting these quotas, and that felt a very positive thing. And I was just thinking, we're sitting here again today, so kind of what do you think happened? We can see what didn't happen. It really doesn't feel like those quotas have really happened. Maybe beginning to, but it just where do you think it's going wrong? Is it about not having the right kind of writers putting forward the scripts?
Right, thank you. Then we've got one at the back, and Rich says I can do one more, and then you're the last. There's somebody right at the back, thank you.
My name is Eleanor and I'm from the Musicians Union, and I just wanted to explore a little bit more about the difficulties that we experience as self-employed musicians and possibly actors here as well, in convincing people that we are actually here as workers that have a profession, and in the case of many musicians is to be taken seriously for what we do. We are not just there to have fun. And and as disabled people, we have a lot of difficulties in gaining people's respect. A little bit more about the benefit scroungers and that we don't scrounge anything. We want to earn our money earnestly, and there is an awful lot that we can still do within our unions to help ourselves and help other people to have a better understanding of what the position is here. And I think conferences like this would really help to raise the profile of all these issues and help us all to really get where we need to be, not only on the same level as other people with disabilities who work in offices, but also on the same level as other workers in general.
Thank you. Okay, and then you.
Thank you. My name is Roddy Slurk. I wanted to just ask a question, really. Given that the majority of impairments are actually hidden or invisible, how do we get round this difficulty in terms of honest or helpful representation of disability in film and TV? The second issue, I guess, is more a point, and is that when we come to disability, if we compare it to sexism or racism, the issue of money is much more prominent. Let's refer to the adaptations that were going to be made on an individual level for her in terms of location shooting and all the rest of it. I mean, this seems to me to be a difficulty, which is that disability does cost money. If you think about black folk getting access to mixed education in America for the first time, a lot of that involved political courage and rights and all the rest of it and a sense of conviction. It didn't necessarily involve money. And for disabled people to get access into education, it did require investment in making courses, facilities and all the rest of it accessible. Is the same true for arts in film and TV in particular? Does anybody get any thoughts on that?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say that in the 90s we did have a huge conference with Equity, and I don't know what's happened since then, to be honest. That was 20 years ago, and it covered all the points that all of you are raising. So I wondered if people would concentrate on the union involvement and what the union's done, if anything. The hidden impairments, I think, is crucial because, as we know, a very small percentage of disabled people are in wheelchairs, and yet the general public often think that's what it is. And actually the hidden impairments are far more numerous, as you say, and there's a vast number, which Richard will give you a huge list of, and all disabled people know, but non-disabled people tend not to know. So I think that's a really crucial issue. And also the whole thing about where quotas have gone, because they don't seem to have happened. If you can just briefly answer those between you.
Jeez.
Liz.
I don't quite know where to start with that mixed bag. No, it's fine. At unions, I don't have that much to say. I'm a member of Equity. I know that they have a disabled members group. I gave up on committees a while ago, not on politics, but on committees. So I'm not active in that. So actually, you'd need somebody else to. But a lot of the kind of that daily discrimination in a way that I talked about, some of those. You just know it's just partly you talked about some of the same stuff. You just deal with it. We do it. All these little acts of discrimination that we all, if we're disabled people or have another area where we're discriminated against, you just do that. You just deal with them. Not whether we should or shouldn't, but sometimes it doesn't feel anything big enough to take as a big issue. So unions, I'm not the best person, but I think it's a great question. I would say to the person at the back and you were saying about sort of support, I would say Act for Change may be a really good place for you around the musicians and actors and artists getting better support from each other and being recognised. I think it's a thing that artists have generally. And it's not just whether you experience some kind of oppression, as you said, but if you do, then I've got more support from Act for Change, which has been mentioned a number of times today. So I would encourage people to. It's maybe the new 1 in 8, but what it does is it links us all, because it says we're fighting a lot of the same battles, and we don't have to do it on our own, and that gives you immense strength and much more bargaining power, actually. So I would encourage people to look at that. Why do non-disabled people get, queued